The movie begins in Los Angeles, where a group of police officers are caught in a fierce gunfight with four robbers who have just held up a bank in Lincoln Heights. While two of the robbers remain inside to watch over the hostages, the other two stand outside, heavily armed with automatic rifles and full body armor, engaging the police in a brutal firefight. Their superior firepower gives them an advantage over the police, who are only carrying handguns. Fortunately, the SWAT team soon arrives. Officers Jim and Brian, along with two other team members, descend from a helicopter onto the bank's rooftop. They enter the storage room and use special spy cameras to scout a safe route to the lobby. Meanwhile, several SWAT snipers position themselves on a nearby rooftop while another team approaches from the ground. At that moment, one of the robbers outside attempts to flee in a getaway car, but a sniper takes him down with a single shot. The other robber continues firing, but the ground team quickly subdues him. Inside the bank, the two remaining robbers start to panic. The SWAT team negotiator is called in to arrange the hostages' release. As the negotiator talks, Lieutenant Velasquez instructs the team inside to hold their position. However, Brian ignores the order and moves toward the lobby, with Jim reluctantly following. As tensions escalate, one of the robbers grabs a woman, holding a gun to her head. Seeing no other option, Brian takes the shot, hitting the robber in the shoulder and killing him. Jim takes down the final robber, bringing the ordeal to an end. After the incident, Jim checks on the injured woman and calls for an ambulance. Brian, concerned about her, asks if she will be okay, but Jim snaps at him, clearly upset with his reckless actions. Later at the precinct, Captain Fuller is furious with Jim and Brian for disobeying orders, especially since the injured woman is now planning to sue them and the city for millions. As a result, Fuller fires them from the SWAT team. However, Velasquez intervenes and convinces him to give them another chance, assigning them to cage duty, a humiliating position involving the maintenance and distribution of weapons and equipment to other officers. Brian is insulted and openly expresses his frustration to Fuller, but this only worsens the situation. Fuller offers Jim an opportunity to return to the team if he is willing to report Brian's reckless behavior. Meanwhile, Brian decides to quit and starts packing. Before leaving, he accuses Jim of betrayal and slams his head into a mirror. 6 months later, Jim continues his training but remains stuck in the gun cage, performing menial tasks. One day, Sergeant Hondo visits the precinct and asks Jim to repair his customized M4 rifle. Impressed by Jim's modifications, Hondo later meets with Velasquez to discuss forming a new SWAT team to address the LAPD's negative publicity. Hondo is given 2 officers, TJ and Michael, and selects 3 more candidates from personnel files. Back at home, Jim finds his girlfriend packing to leave, citing that their relationship has changed since his removal from the SWAT team. Despite her attempts at reconciliation, Jim refuses, letting her go. At work, word spreads that Jim has invented a new device during his cage duty, a massive hook and chain designed to tear down walls and end hostile standoffs, which he calls the key to the city. Hondo, intrigued by Jim's skills, takes him to the shooting range, where Jim surprises everyone by outperforming TJ in a shooting challenge. Meanwhile, French mobster Alex arrives in Los Angeles, narrowly avoiding security confiscating his knife by claiming it as a family heirloom. Once settled, he receives a fake passport and meets with his associates. Alex heads to a local restaurant to visit his uncle, pretending it's a surprise birthday visit. However, Alex is aware that his uncle has been stealing money from the family for some time. After sharing a meal together, Alex quickly kills his uncle with a knife. He then leaves the restaurant alone and drives off. Eventually, Alex is pulled over by the police due to a broken taillight. Since the car belongs to his uncle and T here is an active arrest warrant out for him, Alex is taken into custody for questioning and identity verification. He tries to bribe the officers to get out of the situation, but it doesn't work, and Alex is placed in a holding cell. Meanwhile, back with Hondo, he recruits Jim to be his driver for the day as they search for new team members. Their first stop is Officer Deck, who they spot chasing a suspect on foot. As the 2 men sprint through the streets, Hondo and Jim decide to join in the pursuit, running several blocks until they manage to catch the suspect. This irritates Deck, who wanted to handle it alone. However, he calms down when Hondo invites him to join the team. Next, they visit another candidate, a vegan who's far too polite and rigid to last long in Hondo's squad, leaving a bad first impression. They then move on to a subway cop named Chris, who has repeatedly applied and qualified for the SWAT team but has been rejected due to several misconduct complaints filed with Internal Affairs. They hear that Chris is at the local emergency room and find her partner keeping an eye on a thug with multiple bruises on his face, a gift from Chris. "Bad day, huh?" the thug says, to which Hondo responds, "Kiss my ass." Hondo approaches the cop only to realize that Chris is a woman, as Chris is short for Christina. This leads Hondo to suspect that Fuller might have excluded Chris from the SWAT list because of her gender, and that the misconduct complaints were just an excuse, especially when Chris explains that most of the allegations against her come from violent male criminals who can't handle being roughed up by a female officer. Hondo quickly takes a liking to her and offers her a position on his team, asking, "So, you still want to work SWAT?" When they return to headquarters, Jim asks Hondo if he's just going to keep dragging him around for the day, or if he's really going to tell him why he's part of this recruitment process. Hondo asks Jim if he wants to join the team, and when Jim hesitates, knowing Fuller wouldn't approve, Hondo asks if he's given up on Brian. "Did you give him up?" In Fuller's office, Jim says he hasn't, so Hondo gives him the final spot on the team. Later, during a meeting to discuss the team, Fuller predictably rejects Chris and Jim, but Hondo refuses to back down. Other leaders get to pick their teams, so Fuller offers a compromise. He'll accept the current team, but if they fail to pass the initial SWAT tests, Chris will return to her subway duties, and both Jim and Hondo will be removed from the unit. Hondo agrees, confident that his new team will succeed. Training begins soon after, and the team members get to know each other. It's revealed that Jim's ex-girlfriend is Michael's sister, and T here is tension between them because Michael believes Jim wronged her. The two nearly come to blows before being separated by the others. Hondo puts the team through a series of tests ranging from infiltration, armor, weapons, physical training, and long-range shooting. While there are some struggles at first, they eventually perform well during sniper training, targeting playing cards. The team demonstrates exceptional marksmanship. They also practice simulated exercises, infiltrating empty buildings and learning how to work together to rescue hostages rather than risk losing them. A few days later, it's time for the final evaluation, which includes a simulated hostage scenario. The team will have to infiltrate a plane hijacked by terrorists, with their colleagues playing the hijackers and armed with paintball guns. The goal is to regain control of the plane by eliminating all the hijackers within 8 minutes. While studying the layout of the plane, Jim notices an alternative entry point no one else would think of, a small elevator shaft used to place food trays, too narrow for anyone to fit through except for Chris. The team drives their vehicle under the plane and starts drilling a hole into the fuselage while one member climbs onto the roof, preparing to enter through a window. As Chris crawls into the elevator shaft, the others find a hatch and detect a trap before it can be activated. Seconds later, they neutralize the threat and count to 3 before launching their attack, spreading out across the plane. The team quickly takes down all 6 hijackers with rapid shots without losing a single hostage, though TJ takes a hit that would have been fatal if it were real. Much to Fuller's irritation, the new team sets a record for the exercise. That night, the group celebrates over dinner at a cafe run by Deke's father. After a few hours of eating and drinking, most of the team heads home, except for Chris and Jim, who go to Jim's favorite bar. While they share more drinks, they're interrupted by Brian, who exchanges hostile remarks with Jim before storming out. "Glad to see all that butt-kissing really paid off," he says on his way out, smashing a framed photo of himself and Jim against the wall. Back to Jim, he tries to make a move on Chris, but she rejects him before inviting him to. Her daughter's birthday party takes place, and meanwhile, Alex attempts to hire a lawyer. However, the lawyer is unable to help him, and soon he is transferred. The next day, the team enjoys their day off. Hondo and Velasquez play golf. Deke spends time with his kids, Michael stays home with his wife, and Jim attends Chris's daughter's birthday party, entertaining the children with water guns. However, everyone's fun is interrupted by an emergency call. There is a Polish hostage situation where a man has barricaded himself inside his house, firing randomly out the windows. The man claims to have rigged all entrances with explosives, although no one believes him. Velasquez refuses to take the risk. Jim suggests using his invention, the key to the city, and they use it to tear down the back wall of the house, subduing the suspect and ending the standoff in seconds. Later, in the sheriff's office, a deputy uncovers information about Alex's true identity. The intel is sent to Velasquez, who orders Hondo's team to intercept and escort the prison bus carrying Alex. Meanwhile, Alex's crew learns about the transfer and sends two men disguised as cops, using a stolen police car to pull over the bus. They then climb aboard, open fire on the guards, and free Alex. Just as they're about to drive off, Hondo's team arrives and blocks the street. The criminals open fire, triggering a shootout as civilians flee in panic. The team quickly takes out all the fake cops, and when Alex tries to escape in the stolen police car, they shoot at it until it crashes and recapture him. It is later revealed that Alex is an international fugitive wanted in over a dozen countries for crimes, including murder, arms trafficking, and smuggling. Journalists are closely following the case, and as Alex is taken to the holding cell, he seizes the opportunity to address the cameras, offering a $100 million reward to anyone who can break him out of prison. Every news channel replays his statement repeatedly, confirming that Alex has the financial resources to back his promise. The family's fortune is estimated in the billions of dollars, drawing the attention of every criminal in Los Angeles. Hondo's team feels frustrated, knowing this will only make their job harder. The team then moves Alex to the rooftop, planning to evacuate him via helicopter. However, just as the helicopter is about to reach them, it is suddenly hit by an unseen sniper. The helicopter spirals out of control and crashes into the street below, exploding. The team quickly takes Alex back inside and devises a new plan. They will transport the criminal via a convoy. They set off in cars and on motorcycles, ignoring the mobs of crazed fans trying to get Alex's attention. However, they are forced to stop when a homeless man slowly crosses the road, which turns out to be a trap. A gang quickly ambushes the police as trucks ram into police cars. Other criminals open fire and throw smoke grenades, killing one motorcycle officer and injuring two others. However, when they reach Alex, they find only a doll. It turns out the vehicles are a decoy, and Alex has been moved through an underground private passage into an unmarked car parked a few blocks away from headquarters. With Velasquez providing aerial surveillance miles away, Hondo's plan is going smoothly, despite Alex taunting them with insults and offers of money. $66 million for each of you. As they pass through a second checkpoint, TJ suddenly stops the car, pointing his gun at the rest of the team. He has decided to take Alex up on his offer. Jim and Michael try to reason with him, asking, "What the hell are you doing?" But TJ reveals that he has already joined forces with Brian, who then shoots Michael, revealing himself as the mastermind behind the entire plot to capture Alex. After handcuffing Jim to the car, TJ and Brian flee into the subway with Alex. Soon after, the rest of the team arrives, freeing Jim and calling for medics to treat Michael. They decide to split up again, with Hondo and Jim following closely behind while Deck and Sanchez rush to the next station. Unfortunately, Hondo and Jim miss the train. However, Deke and Chris report that the train never arrived at the next stop, prompting both teams to head to the end of the tunnel for investigation. They discover that the train had been abandoned midway through the tunnel, with Brian and his crew already gone, leaving behind terrified passengers. The driver points them toward a storm drain, which the team enters, cutting them off from police frequencies. Meanwhile, Fuller uncovers TJ's betrayal and Brian's involvement, suspecting that the entire team might be in on Alex's escape, especially since they had stopped responding. When Fuller discovers that an unauthorized runway has been lit up at Hawthorne Airport, he suspects Brian is heading there and sends all available units to intercept. As the team tracks the criminals through sewer tunnels, avoiding bats along the way, Brian sets up a trap with claymore mines and smoke grenades, much to TJ's dislike. Hondo's team presses forward undeterred by the smoke, and just as Deke is about to trigger the trap, Jim stops him in time. While Jim disarms the claymore, Brian's team reaches the end of the tunnel, locking the heavy door behind them as they leave the area. Eventually, Hondo's team reaches the locked door, but Jim is able to blow open the locked door with a breaching charge, and with their communication back online, Hondo briefed Fuller on the situation, requesting transport. However, Fuller, no longer trusting Hondo, ordered the team to abort the mission. Hondo ignored the command, and his team commandeered a passing luxury car, speeding off in pursuit. Chris noticed a low-flying jet plane overhead and quickly realized that the plane must be Brian's plan to evacuate Alex, with the airport just a decoy. The team immediately followed the plane, which was now landing on the 6th Street Bridge. Brian and his men quickly took the terrified plane owner hostage, boarded the aircraft, and prepared to flee. The team drove the luxury car onto the bridge, and when 2 of the criminals fired shots to detonate roadblocks, Hondo didn't hesitate and drove straight through them. The police opened fire, trying to stop the plane, but when that didn't work, Hondo rammed the plane's landing gear before it could take off, causing the plane to crash. Another firefight broke out between the SWAT team and Brian's men. During this, Chris was shot in the shoulder. Alex tried to escape, but Deke chased him down on foot and quickly recaptured him. Brian used a hostage as cover to safely exit the plane, then dangled from the side of the bridge, with Jim following close behind. Meanwhile, Hondo confronted a wounded TJ, who expressed regret for his actions and inquired about Michael. After Hondo assured him that Michael was expected to recover, TJ drew a gun and ended his own life. Back with Jim, he descended the bridge and landed in a rail yard, only for Brian to suddenly ambush him, stabbing his hand before running off. Jim chased him, and after dodging a few passing trains, the two engaged in hand-to-hand combat. They slammed into each other on the tracks, and just as a train approached, Jim kicked Brian's head onto the rails, killing him instantly. After rejoining his team on the bridge, Fuller arrived and congratulated everyone on a job well done, but he also reminded them that the work wasn't over yet. Alex was still in custody and needed to be transferred to federal prison. The team loaded him into the SWAT truck to hand him over to the authorities. Sometime later, after successfully delivering Alex, the police unit received a report of an ongoing robbery. Hondo pointed out that technically their shift had ended 12 hours ago, but the exhausted team still agreed to head to the next mission.